one thing that we usually come up against is, why are your bars so expensive? And we have to turn around and say, don't you think the question should be, why are some of these bars so cheap?
Hi, I'm Myleene Klass, and I've partnered with Meta to shine a light on female business owners across the UK who, when faced with challenges, have gone beyond to innovate, reinvent and succeed, and continue to inspire future generations of female entrepreneurs. Now, in our three-part series, Braving the Beyond, I'll be chatting with three extraordinary women who built thriving small businesses from scratch. Let me introduce you to the founder of Lucoco Chocolate, Amarachi Clark, a London-based, ethically and sustainably made chocolate bars company. Now, Amarachi has not only created a product that can rival the giants of the chocolate industry, but also does its part for the planet and the people in it. Amarachi, it's so lovely to speak to you. I have such huge admiration for what you've been doing. I mean, you are rivaling the chocolate giants. How does that feel?
Well, we're trying to change it as much as we can and show that a better way is possible, that you can enjoy chocolate and it can be made ethically and it can be made sustainably without having people harmed in the process.
So take me back to the very, very start of how you came about this idea for your own chocolate business. From bean to bar, as you say.
Yep, from bean to bar. So we're London's first bean to bar chocolate company. I was a keen runner, and me and my friends, we used to run around the world. And then one day I did a marathon in San Francisco. Unfortunately got injured, and I want to try and use kind of natural remedies to try and heal myself. And food was one of those. And I love chocolate, and I started looking at ways as chocolate being a healer. But the more I read about it, the more I realised that actually a lot of the things that we're told about chocolate in the big market isn't actually true. So chocolate is actually like wine and coffee. Different regions create different flavours, and you can have all these different incredible flavours from chocolate. But then also there was this really dark secret in the chocolate supply chain with child and slave labour. And so I thought, okay, I'm a big campaigner, and I've got a big campaigning past, and I love chocolate, but why are we not being able to try and taste the true flavour of chocolate? So I decided to teach myself to make chocolate. And so I converted my second bedroom in our 2-bedroom flat into a chocolate factory while still working full time, and then started making my creations there. And then I launched in March 2015.
Something you speak very, very much from the heart about is the sustainability of everything. What should we know about what the chocolate industry is doing that you are then trying to combat?
So we're trying to combat the idea that it's okay to not pay people a living income for the hard work that they do. And all of this all starts to stem into some really murky and dark practices around child and slave labour. And now nobody wants their favourite food to have slavery within the supply chain. But the reality of the problem is that they do. So they're the things that we're trying to say. You can have your chocolate and you can enjoy it, but you have to really start asking some of those questions around, what am I eating? Where are those beans from? And who participates in it? What we try and do is engage with farms and farmers where that's not happening. And unfortunately, we have to spend quite a lot of time in South America getting our beans. Instead of engaging with somewhere where it's close to my heart, which is West Africa, because there's such a big problem.
And this sounds like quite dangerous territory and exceptionally controversial, but very important territory that you are, again, combating. And it feels like, one woman against huge conglomerates here, huge corporations. How intimidating is it for you to be taking this on?
Well, it definitely isn't just me. There's so many of us. And the thing is that to make some change happen, it isn't just one person as an island. It takes a lot of people. And there are so many amazing people doing work on this. There are so many kind of bean to bar chocolate makers like myself that are independent that are also tackling this. And we try and produce the best quality chocolate that we can to get people to say, on the level that they can engage with and say, this tastes really good, but why? One thing that we usually come up against is, why are your bars so expensive? And we have to turn around and say, don't you think the question should be, why are some of these bars so cheap?
It's quite interesting what you say there, because you're saying that people are saying, no to child slavery within the chocolate industry, but I don't know if there are enough people actually even recognise that this is what's happening, because I think most people, of course, would say no. So it almost feels like, whilst you're also selling chocolate, you're re-educating an entire consumer market to what's actually going on here.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that I've campaigned so much on so many different issues in my lifetime. One area I had never explored was the practical making something to change something, which meant starting this business to try and show people that it can be done, rather than lobbying to try and make something happen. Because realistically, my company's a small splash in the ocean.
You talk of it being a small splash in the ocean, but you have big companies behind you like Instagram and Facebook. How are you using Meta? How are you using these platforms to get your message out there? Because they're very big platforms that have been very successful for you.
We use our Facebook and Instagram platforms to educate people, as well as telling, promoting the stuff that we have, because we are a business. But at the same time, we have the ability to tell people actually what's going on. So just yesterday, we don't like to call out businesses, but when we see something going wrong, we really have to call it out, because that's how we get it on the agenda. There's nothing wrong with being a business that educates people on what things should be happening. So having a business that is educating people on what the right way of engaging in chocolate should be.
Would you say that that's one of your core brand values?
For me, when I started Le Coco, one of the core brand values would always have to be about challenging the industry to do better. Um, you know, when you start up a business, it's so difficult, because you're usually starting by yourself, trying to grow.
Also, it's a heavily male-dominated industry that you're what challenges have you come up against in this arena?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting one, because the chocolate industry is very male dominated, and so when I started my business, it's, as a black woman starting a business in chocolate, it was almost like I was had to ask permission to be here, and I felt that really odd. And so, for example, I'm at a trade show. This is like year 2 or 3 of the business, at a trade show selling my chocolate along with all the other chocolate makers. We're all in this one corner, and I can hear, it's quite quiet at this point, and I can hear these two men coming down the aisles, and they were talking about, oh, we've got beans we need to sell. And so they were talking to all the stalls, and they got to mine, and I could hear them over walking past saying, oh, we'll wait for the person that owns it to come back. They must have figured out that I owned it, because 2 months down the line, I got an email from those people asking if we could buy their beans. Of course we're not going to, because you didn't give me the respect on the day. So it's really hard to try and, especially when I was working full time, to try and assert your position. But again, because I've got that purpose, to drive the focus, in order to know exactly why I'm here, I'm trying to change something. Some of those things, you kind of push them to the side and say, okay, you can say what you want, but I know what I'm here for. So I think for me, that's how I've really challenged even challenging myself to try and just focus on what I'm trying to do.
It's interesting, because the challenges that you're talking of, I can hugely identify. I mean, for me, there's, I've got there's a lot of racial ambiguity as to where I'm from, and then definitely being overlooked as a woman in business. I can again really identify with people passing me by, not thinking that I have anything to do with the business, or I might just be the face of it, but not much else. And it's quite interesting because for many people there are the immediate challenges, but before you've even started, you've got all the other challenges on top. How does that make you feel?
Like you said, you experience the same thing, and it's not something that happens when you're in business. It's your daily life. So at every turn, just waking up, you're facing all these challenges anyway. So business is no different. Every kind of new avenue or new corner that you turn into, you're kind of like hit by the fact of them showing you who you are again, just after you've got comfortable walking down the
No,
street
they're showing me
doing
who
one
they
thing.
are. I've come up against questions in race. I've come up against questions of being a woman in business or being overlooked as a woman in business. I've come up against
Yeah,
being underestimated as a woman,
yeah,
and because of my race or that racial ambiguity, because most people don't even know where I am from. But all of these things contribute when you're just trying to do business. But also, people do business with people. So this is quite an interesting, I find this very interesting that you've come up against all of these challenges before you've even got to the business part.
yeah, exactly.
What would your advice be to someone who wanted to start their own business, like you have done, not necessarily something you've grown up around, but hugely passionate about?
The first thing would be to try and find what the purpose of it is, because that's the finding a purpose of your business really helps you on those down days, because we always have highs and we always have lows, and we have an idea that we're really passionate about, but what are you trying to do with it? So what's the purpose of doing it? So I would always say find your purpose and then build around that.
Finally, do you have any advice for women who are trying to grow their community online? What can they learn from you?
If somebody's trying to grow their community online, I think that there's a lot of offerings, from everything from the reels, from those kind of posts where you're challenging your customer, those posts where you're kind of selling to your customer, and those posts where you're kind of giving a bit of humor and a bit of personality. There's so many different facets, and I think it's about finding one that kind of works for you. And the best thing about it is that you can test it, because you can try one thing today and then you try something else tomorrow, and then you can refine the way that you engage. But I think with us, what really works is having challenging posts, the funny posts, the kind of salesy posts, the ads, and just a combination of all of them works for us.
And so you would encourage women to use meta technology. How would you encourage them to use it?
You've got a platform there where you can go and scream your head off in the best way possible. And that's what I would encourage people to do. So I would encourage women to go, and especially in industries like mine where you don't usually see your own face, to go and push it out through channels that you control. So you control what you put on your Instagram, you control what you put on your Facebook. So you should go, and I would definitely encourage women to go and use them.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amarachi, for sharing your story. It's been so uplifting to hear about a values led, female owned brand, and it's really triumphing, really is. I can imagine it's been pretty
Thank you.
harsh at times in this industry. And of course, you've shown us where there's passion and perseverance, brands really can keep their values at their core. So, Amarachi, thank you once again. And thank you to you all for tuning in.
Thank you.